Yeah, if I haven't already said that, I hope everybody's having a happy new year. I can't even remember last time I was on this. Anyway, I've been quite busy doing this, that and the other, working and so forth. And last weekend I was in Liverpool. I went down there to see a band called Fairport Convention, and before that I thought I'd take my son to visit some of the places associated with the Beatles, because we're big Beatles fans, and we went to a place where John Lennon actually met Paul McCartney. It's a Walton Village sort of community hall that it is now, and there's a big plaque outside. And when I went down to park the car, and the church opposite is where you can find the burial place of Eleanor Rigby, although Paul McCartney claims that he got the name Eleanor Rigby not from this name in the grave, which was only discovered in like 1980, even though she'd already been dead for about 100 years before that. But anyway, it's still interesting. So I digress. So anyway, I was trying to go down to park a car, and as I went down the street to try and find a parking place, because it's very, very busy there, it's a really narrow road, and as it turned out there were two carters at the corner. I thought, oh my god, they're even there. And they were standing there because there was like a little small outdoor market on this road, so they were there, and I just thought, no, I'm not going to let my son have to stand there going, no, you're not, Dad, because definitely he would have said, if he saw me speaking to his people, he would have said, no, you're not. So anyway, I just thought, we're too busy anyway, we've got Beatle things to do, and there's no point speaking to these people. So yesterday I got a bus up to Glasgow from where I live in Dumfries and Galloway, and if you are of my particular age, the one good thing about this Scottish government is, and there's a few good things, there's a few bad things, right enough, is that once you turn the big 6-0, they give you a free travel card, which allows you to get on any buses anywhere in Scotland for absolutely free. Incredible. So I can go anywhere in Scotland and it won't cost me a penny. So I was going to visit my brother, and my brother is actually at the moment, for the past 3 weeks to this morning was his last treatment, he's got prostate cancer. So he's having to go in one of these things that you lie down, this circular thing goes around and starts hitting him with the radiation bursts every so often, try and kill off the cancer in his prostate. Heaven knows what other damage they're doing at the same time. And so he's been put up in a little hotel because he lives in an island, not on the mainland of Scotland, and so he's getting put up for free by the NHS in Scotland. I don't think there's many countries do that, definitely not America, and probably America would have to pay up for their own treatment and the hotel stay. So anyway, NHS, God bless them. So I thought I'd go up and cheer him up, and I arranged to meet him in a place called Crystal Palace to wee chat. And coming up that day was actually this picture here of that chap there. You probably recognise him. So he's the second governing body member that I've seen sporting. The last one had the wee gitty goatee, the wee Australian, but this is the guy Mark Sanderson, I think he is. This is the guy who's actually younger than me, and he's got the full beard there. And he's also lost the glasses as well. This guy's younger than me and he's a governing body member. How does that one work? So anyway, I was talking to my brother. I just said, have you seen this picture? And he says, yeah. And my brother's still a believer, but I don't think he goes to the meetings. I think he's probably he's definitely physically out, and he's partially mentally out, I believe. And he saw that, and then he said, so, and I just said to him, so, and he went, He says, so what, I said to him, so what's led to the change? And he goes, yeah, something to do with beards was part of the counterculture revolution. I says, well, yes, they may have been, but beards were banned way before that, going back to even before the First World War. We know that when, after, it was Judge Rutherford, apparently, didn't like beards. He was a beard, ooh, beards, I'm scared. And so that's when this carried on for the next 80, was it 100 years? It could have been in 100 years, like, not allowed to have beards. And so the counterculture is only in the 60s. So basically, to keep on using that excuse is very poor. And then he agreed and says, yes, it's very confusing. So anyway, we had a nice chat with him for 2 hours in this pub. And then I had to get home to a place called Buchanan Bus Station, which, funny enough, I did work at about 39 years ago. It's funny seeing that place again. And I used to work at Buchanan Bus Station. And as I'm approaching it, I couldn't believe it. Outside, the bit I'd already come in were two carters. There were two carters. And I was early for my bus, and I just thought, you know what? I could waste a few 10 minutes here. I'll go up and speak to these two carters. So these two carters were there. And obviously I think the two carters I did take a picture of. But anyway, these are the two carters. So they're outside the Royal Concert Hall. And here they are, sharing a good joke. There they are. So basically you'll notice straight away they're not speaking to anybody, and they're having a right good laugh to themselves in opposite the Royal Concert Hall on the way into Buchanan bus station. And I just thought, I felt sorry for these lads. I thought, really, they're wanting somebody to speak to. Yes, there is something from the door. Yes, good boy. So anyway, hey, pack it in. So I went up to them, and of course I led with the picture. So I went to the guy on the right. This is this guy here, the older looking. I don't know whether the guy on his left may have been his son. I think it's his son, because if you compare that nostril with this guy's nostril, I think they're father and son. I think he's a pioneer. He's probably a pioneering elder, and his son's probably a pioneering servant. But I think this is father and son. I was initially when I looked them, I was a bit thrown because the son's wearing this sort of gear here, and with that hat, he looks like he's maybe going off to do some mountain climbing. So I was a bit confused whether he was actually talking to this guy, but I think they're probably father and son. So I go up to them both. And I lead with the picture. So I just do this. So I just go up to them both, and I go up and say, do you know who that is? So the older one says to me, he doesn't answer the question, you know, like most Jehovah's Witnesses these days, they are politicians, they are skilled in diversionary tactics. If you ask them a question, they won't answer it. He came back with another question. He said to me, do you know who that is? So I said, well, I tell you what, 3 months ago I would have said to you, well, it cannot possibly be a member of the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses because that guy's got a beard. And then he thought, oh dear, because then he realised what he was going to get next. And I said, so how did this change? I says, for over 80 years, Jehovah's Witnesses weren't allowed to have beards. If you were wanting to advance in the congregation as a young brother, you were literally told, you know, you can't do the mics, you can't do the sound, you can't do the magazines. You'll never get a part on the assembly. You know, you won't become an elder because you've got a beard. And that was the way it was. And it says, but all of a sudden, it's changed. He says, no, and he went, no, it's not. It hasn't changed. It's been a personal matter. And I went, well, hold on a second. So he's doing the old one. He's already ready with the excuses, this guy. It's a personal matter. And I said to him, well, if it was a personal matter then, how come these guys were not wearing beards prior to 3 months ago? How come all the governing body have not been wearing beards for the past 100 years or so, since the time of Charles Taze Russell? How come if it was a personal matter that you were quite clearly told, no way? If it was a personal matter, why did my presiding overseer say to me, I'd love to grow a beard like you've grown a beard, however, I can't, even though he's got a really bad shaving rash every time he shaved? I said, clearly it wasn't a personal matter. I said, so something's changed. And then he then goes, diversionary tactic again, goes in straight in with, because he realised there's no good answer to this. So then he goes, well, what I prefer to concentrate on is not the smaller things like beards. We don't want to talk about beards, do we? I want to talk about the wonderful things that Jehovah's going to do when he brings his paradise to the earth. So I just thought to myself, hey pal, I'm not letting go of this one. You may be prepared to let go of this. And I went, well, hold on a second. I says, the small things do count. I says, for instance, didn't Jehovah said that he doesn't see a bird falling from the heavens without him noticing it? And I says, we're talking about a small beard. Small beard. A small bird. It might have had a wee beard. A small bird. And so really the small things count. And I says, I can tell you there are countless examples I know of people who left the organisation over small things. And the people who weren't able to advance in the congregation over small things. People who were stopped from doing things in the congregation because of small things. I says, small things count. I says, I don't understand this. I says, because Jehovah's been around for ages. And clearly he doesn't change his opinion. So why is it now all of a sudden that the governing body is changing their opinion on something? Because all of a sudden the world has deemed it okay for the head honchos of organisations in this world to be groomed with a beard. Surely that doesn't make any sense. And he just looks at me. I'm looking for a response from this guy, and you can just see he's been in the most uncomfortable position he's been in for a long time. You see, because, boys and girls, this is good. Because when Jehovah's Witnesses come to your door, they can leave. If they all of a sudden get asked the really tough questions like beard, I'm not even talking about the really, really tough questions, but when they get a tough question about beards, how come they're now in when they were out for like 100 years? They can just say to themselves, well, we must crack on now, we've just got another door to go. Oh, that's me getting a phantom, call to go to the next door. The angels are going to be on. But when you've got them there at the carts, and it's a bit different when there's a couple of sisters there, because then you get one of the head honcho elders will come over to replace the sisters. But here it was two brothers, and these two guys weren't going anywhere. So what choice did they do? They could either just stand there, listen to me, and go, I hope he goes away soon. Or otherwise they could just take the little carts and trundle off, at which point I could always follow them as they're talking. So of course this guy was in a rock and a hard place. And this is a good thing about the carters, because they're not going anywhere if you just stand and chat to them. What was probably throwing him as a wee bit was because I was actually talking to him. He's probably thinking, this is confusing, somebody's actually talking to me. So I said to him about this whole thing, I says, I don't understand this. And he was just going like this. He just had this glacial, stupid look on his face. He just needed to slap his face and just say, please, what's your opinion? Logically explain this to me. And he then eventually just said, I said, it's just as though these people are just making up as they go on. And he says, well, that's just your opinion. So at least he's responded to that. I says, no, it's not just my opinion. This is opinion of me and many of my friends and a lot of the Jehovah's Witnesses that I brought up with. I says, most of them that I know are no longer Jehovah's Witnesses. There's a few that still left, I says, but that's their opinion too. And I had still another 5 minutes. And I said to him, I says, by the way, I says, I have to comment about this. You two standing here. By the way, his mate, or I think it's his son, the noses have it. I think his mate, or his son, during all this time, even though I was trying to I was literally doing the old, you look at one person, then you look at the other person, so you're not those saying, he's not looked at me once. He's been chatting to my friend the whole time, how rude. I was trying to engage this guy, but this guy here, either didn't have opinion, or maybe he was thinking in his mind, shit, this guy's making total sense. I'm going to resign today. But anyway, probably not. But anyhow, this guy here on the left says nothing. So then I just said, I've got to say something about this. I said, you two guys standing here, not speaking to anybody, I says, how does this constitute preaching? I says, because I've stood here and I've seen people before I walked here that people just walk past you. And I says, you believe that Armageddon's imminent, don't you? And he says, yes. Well, got a response. I says, so these people walking past you right now may be their only opportunity for them to learn of their imminent destruction. This will be their only chance to get their life saved. And you are standing here letting them walk past you. I said, if Jesus Christ was here right now, he would not wait for people to come up to him. He would go to people. And then he turned around and said to me and says, well, you don't know what else I do. You know, this is only part of it. And I says, well, that's funny. I says, because the only Jehovah's Witnesses I've seen are the ones doing the carts. Of course, I did see the ones doing the chapping when I was a year ago in Lanzarote. and they couldn't, their English was very, very poor, but they actually were doing it. I said to them, I says, I've not had a Jehovah's Witness to my door in 5 years. And it says, and I worked from home for many of those years. It might be longer now because of COVID. Maybe it's 7 years. I think it's longer. It's been a hell of a long time. Obviously, I'm out at the moment, but I've never come back to find anything that said, sorry we missed you, if Armageddon comes tomorrow, at least we made an effort. I've had nothing apart from the people who've wrote to me welcoming, obviously I've had the letters, welcoming me to go to attend, the Big Burn Supper. That's a different thing. And he said, well, you don't know what I do. And I said, well, you're here now. And I says, everywhere I go, I just see Carters. I've seen you in Dumfries, Kirkcudbright, and little places, and all you're doing is like the same thing. You're all standing here, counting your time. I should have mentioned, well, you don't count time anymore, but I forgot about that bit. And I said, none of you speaking to anybody. I says, this is the worst warning message ever. I says, for instance, right now, I says, if you knew that there was a tsunami coming to Glasgow, and you and him, the silent Bob, were the only people that knew this was coming, and you were told you've got to warn everybody. I says, would you wait for people to come to you? Or would you be handing out leaflets galore? You need this, you need to this. Would you just doing this because you thought we need to save people's lives? We need to make people be aware of what's going to happen, their impending doom, their impending destruction of them and their family. It's not good enough for them to approach us. We've got to approach them. I said to him, I says, when I did Strike Street work, we gave out leaflets. So we were actually putting something in their hand that they could either read there and then, or ignore and read in the home. So you don't know what's going to happen. I says, you standing in here now. I says, this does not constitute preaching. I said to him, I says, if there were rocks here right now, stones, they would be talking because you're not. So he still had that smug, glacial, stupid look on his face. And I said, well, I need to go. And he was probably thinking, thank God for that. And as I walked away, I says, I'll see you two guys again, and maybe next time you'll have beards. It didn't even raise a crack. However, previous when I mentioned about the beards, I've just remembered one thing I did say, which also got another smile. Well, actually, that didn't get a crack, but this one did get a smile. I actually said to him, I says, do you know that Tony Morris is a no longer a governing body member? And he said, yes. I says, you were there? And he says, yes. I says, well, maybe Tony was against the bearded brigade, and he is the one who says, no, we need to still be clean-shaven brothers, and maybe that's a reason why he was bumped out by the bearded posse. Now, that made him chuckle for a wee bit. But after that, it was deadpan, glacial, stupid look on his face. And as I walked away and went to go into Buchanan bus station on Killamount Street, which Rodney Frame out of Aztec Camera did a wonderful song. If you want to ask Alexa to play it, Killamount Street, it's a great song by Aztec Camera. And when I went through the doors, in front of the doors were two more Carters this side. I hadn't spoken to them because I was facing him and they were over here to my left. And as I walked past them, it was two lassies. And then I recognised one of the lassies and I went, oh my God, I know you, and I've just realised who you am speaking to. These were the Anderson, he's one of the Anderson brothers, who was from a congregation, Kelvin Grove or whatever it was, one north of Glasgow. And he used to come and play football with the boys from Rutherglen on a Saturday when we used to play. Saturday afternoon, him and his brother used to turn up. And I just thought, oh my God. And as I walked away, I'm thinking, my God, I bet you that's your son. I bet you're both pioneers. I'm sure she was a pioneer. I bet you're both pioneering, because this was a Friday lunchtime, and that'll be the son. And I felt incredibly sad, because I just thought to myself, well, I've moved on. I've moved on with my life, and I've gone and done some great things, even when I've not had any money, and I've been to a lot of great places, and I've done a lot of things, and I no longer waste my time sitting in a Kingdom Hall or standing at a cart not speaking to anybody, and yet they are still in there. They're still, as he said to me, still expectant that Armageddon could come tomorrow and that'll be a paradise on earth. still believing that bullshit like 25 years after I left, and he's still there, his wife's there, and obviously they're probably their sons there as well. I felt sorry for them, to be honest with you. Yeah, and it was a bit depressing as I walked away. Again, I've probably done myself no favours. They probably just thought you know, I was a raving lunatic. They probably, with any luck, he never recognised who I was. You're Terry Rutherglen. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I can't even mind this guy's first name. However, it was only afterwards that I realised who he was. So anyway, that's my wee story. My latest encounter with the Carters. And I've said before, I'm not going to do much on this because I've got too much to do. I've got so much more to do in my life that I don't want to spend my life being dominated by either the Workshire fat lazy bastard or the Carters. But when something does come up, I'll just come on here and share, and that's what I intend to do. However, again, like I said, I've got things to do, so I must crack on and do them. And when this finally gets loaded, it'll be interesting to hear your comments. If anybody knows this guy's first name, somebody in the Glasgow area might go, "Oh, I know that." I'm sure his surname was Anderson. He had a wee brother. And his wife used to work in the Royal Bank of Scotland, and she featured in the Royal Bank of Scotland adverts with the NatWest guy called Henry or Dave, or I can't remember, a black guy, I can't remember. Anyway, if anybody knows who these are, just because I just can't remember the name of this guy. But anyway, I'm sure somebody out there goes, "Oh, I know exactly who that is." Anyway, I'm leaving you. Thank you very much for listening. And enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.